The big boys. Right. Again, another division that's not really very heavily matched. We've got two matchups in the top 15. We've got Cyril Gane, who's the interim champion, taking on Francis Ngannou, who's the current champion. Fingers crossed for that one. Of course, there's a bit of tension and stuff at the moment. So I'm hoping that fight holds together. That's the main event of UFC 270. We've also got Tom Aspinall at number 10 taking on Shamil Abdurakhimov at number 8. That's at Fight Night 205. Aside from that, the heavyweight division is pretty much wide open. So we've got Stipe at number 2, who hasn't fought since he's lost to Ngannou. We've got Derek Lewis coming off his very recent win over Chris Daukaus. Curtis Blades beat Rosenstrike. Volkov beat Tybura. And then we've got Rosenstrike, who's coming off a loss, as well as Daukaus, Abdurakhimov, Tybura. So there's a bit of a clear gap in this division for me, and I think that I don't think Stipe is going to get a title shot by just waiting. I think he's going to have to take on someone else. So that leaves him a few options. It leaves him taking on Derek Lewis, which I think is probably a more winnable fight than the other two guys, although the danger that Derek Lewis poses to Miocic is great. And we do know that Miocic has been clipped in his last fight and knocked out. So I wouldn't mind seeing him fight someone that's not quite as big of a puncher, if I'm honest. If I'm Stipe, I'm looking at Curtis Blades, who would be a knight of wrestling and takedown defense, which doesn't really set him up very well for a title shot. Or you could see Stipe fight Alexander Volkov. And that might give him flashbacks of his loss to Stefan Struve, because he struggled with the reach and height of Stefan Struve in that one. And Alexander Volkov's got a win over Struve. So I know it's a bit of a long-winded match to make, but I feel like Stipe could overcome some demons if he gets a win over Alexander Volkov, and most likely he's going to get the full distance of the fight to do it, because Volkov is a decision fighter. So that would be a much safer opportunity for Miocic. I think Curtis Blades will be a long night, and it'll be an exhausting night, and you've got to hope that's 15 minutes instead of 25. And I think Derek Lewis is just fine until he catches you with that big shot that he did against Volkov. So Stipe's in a bit of an awkward situation. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight any of those three guys, really. But he's got to kind of weigh up the risk to reward, because he's not going to get a title shot just by waiting around. I think if he takes out Derek Lewis, that puts him in a clear position. But again, there is a risk to that. A couple of other matchups in this division. Chris Daukaus, who I'm a big fan of, although he's coming off that loss to Derek Lewis, I still feel like he's got a lot to give in this division. And I feel the same about Marcin Tybura. So both guys were on a win streak. Marcin Tybura was on a 5-fight win streak, and Daukaus was, I can't remember what win streak he was on, but it was a good one. It was 4 or 5 in the UFC. Anyway, the point is, both of these guys were streaking until they ran into their last opponent. Tybura lost a decision to Volkov, and Daukaus got stopped by Derek Lewis. It makes sense for those two guys to face one another. I think they're very similar in their skills. I think Chris Daukaus is probably slightly quicker, but he is the lighter of the two fighters. Tybura comes in right towards the top of the division, and I think that their grappling is comparable as well. I'm pretty sure Tybura's got his black belt now, and we know that Daukaus is also a black belt. So that might be a very good mixed martial arts fight between two big guys. And I would love to see that. But the striker in me has got one matchup that I would love to make, and that is Taito Avasa against Jairzinho Rosenstrike. So Rosenstrike's sitting at number 6 at the moment. 12-3 is his record. Taito Avasa 13-3, but on a 4-fight win streak. Now, Rosenstrike's got a decent record in kickboxing. 64-3, I think his record is in kickboxing. That's off the top of my head, so I apologize if it's wrong. But he's got lots of kickboxing experience. He's also naturally very heavy-handed. So we know what he's bringing to the table. He's almost definitely not going to want to grapple with Taito Avasa. Tuivasa's almost definitely not going to want to grapple with him. So we've got a striking match between a seasoned kickboxer and a seasoned street fighter is what this fight would be. And I don't see either of them holding back. I think Taito Avasa takes enough risks to force this fight to move forward. And I think Rosenstrike's got enough good counter-striking skills. Think back to the Arlovsky fight. I think he's got enough counter-striking skills to make it a very risky thing for Tuivasa to just crash forward recklessly. I think that would be an absolute dynamite of a fight. So Tuivasa against Rosenstrike is my number 1 pick for heavyweight. Daukaus against Tabora, I think makes a lot of sense for both of those guys. And then we've got a bit of a triangle going on here with Miocic, Volkov, and Blades. I think Lewis is kind of sitting outside of that right now. If I was him, I'd be waiting on that shot against Ngannou, or well, perhaps Gan if he wins, but we'll see. Oh, right. I think I've thrown enough information at you there. I hope that's made some sense. Put your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know what matchups you'd like to see in what weight classes. I've got a couple of super fights that I've been thinking about as well. I think Vittoria against Chimaev would be a hell of a super fight. Of course, we need to see John Jones against Ngannou, and as I said, I would like to see Diaz against McGregor 3, especially to tie off Nate's UFC contracts. Maybe let him go on a good payday and see where he finds himself next. But we know that's probably not going to happen. I'm just being hopeful. Right. I hope that made sense. I'll catch you next time. Have a good 2022. Happy New Year.